Welcome to Verify in Field, the Millwork podcast. Here's Jacob.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Welcome to Verify in Field. And today I'm excited we have RJ Lange. He is the founder of Lush. We'll dive into what Lush is, and how they are taking a background in the millwork industry and rethinking how we build homes through a consulting business, right? So thanks for joining today, RJ.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone.
I think to get started, could you just give a little bit about your background and how you came to founding Lush?
Sure. So, Lush was born out of the pandemic. Our family business, Lange Brothers Architectural Millwork in Milwaukee, was looking for a couple solutions on what we could do, because normally we're doing architectural millwork packages and everything got halted, right? Just like a lot of things, supply chain went back. So what we started to do was come up with a bunch of ideas of how we can change to something else while jobs are halted or canceled, right? And so that's what started my journey with Lush. Before that, I was currently working as a benefits consultant and was answering some questions for a veterans organization that I had done health insurance for, and they were looking to build teeny homes for veterans that are dealing with post-traumatic stress, trying to get back on their feet, dealing with drug addiction. And one of the ideas that came up was how to build these homes using a system called WikiHouse. And these were teeny sheds. And I said, let's take that idea and let's take all of our expertise that we have in cabinet making and apply this to home building. So we started working with the city of Milwaukee and developing what ended up coming up as Lush, right?
Awesome. So it started, obviously, you yourself, you mentioned you come from many generation, a family business in millwork, but you were working in a totally different industry, right?
Correct.
And to some extent was a little bit of happenstance that you were able to overlay your expertise with this idea that they saw there. And so can you talk a little bit about, first you mentioned the WikiHouse. Can you explain what that is for people who haven't heard of that?
Yeah. So for those that haven't heard of it, you can go to wikihouse.com. There is a website. There's actually TED Talks that go about this. This was developed about 10 to 15 years ago from a architect out in England. And he developed basically a snap and play concept that allows you to basically build small sheds or teeny homes that are about 100 square feet. And the concept was to build quick homes for specifically third world countries. So the idea was think of a country like India, where they have all of these festivals, and thousands and thousands of people come to an area and they don't have shelters, they have tents, right? They could come and they could assemble these and then disassemble them and go back to that area. So that's where WikiHouse comes from. There's a lot of projects that they have going on, specifically in Europe. Amsterdam is the biggest one. We went out there and visited that actually last year. And they just announced that a big story that the government is actually funding them, and they're moving ahead with actually about 1,000 homes at this point. So it's pretty exciting to see that it's actually gaining traction with that system.
Awesome. So Wiki, that's W-I-K-I, as in like Wikipedia. That's
correct.
An open source house design platform, basically, right?
Yep. And so if someone wants to go in and look up their design, they can literally give you the pieces that show you how to cut those pieces out and use their system. Yep.
Yeah. I think I was in architecture school at Clemson. I think one of the studios after I was there actually did a project based on that they actually sent the parts by train out to California to be reassembled. I have to go back and look, but I remember seeing something like that. So there's been a lot of, being that it's open source, there's been a lot of people who have leveraged that or adopted it or built on that type of concept, right?
Yes. So I would say we've seen 5 to 6 different kind of variations of WikiHome system. So we've collaborated with them, we've talked with them, we've visited them over in Europe. Great organization, and glad that they're willing to share that information so people can take it and continue to improve on it, right?
Awesome. So now, that's kind of the impetus for starting Lush. There was this idea you were working with benefits and Veterans Association and veterans and people who needed a home and using this WikiHouse concept. So can you explain now, what is Lush? What does Lush do? What is the mission of Lush and how does it work?
Yeah. So first, I'll start off that what Lush stands for. Lush stands for Lange Urban Sustainable Homes, and our I don't know, I guess catchphrase I always give is rethinking how we build homes. So what my job has been for the last couple of years that we've been working on this process is asking people, how do we make it better, right? When you look at housing is actually one of the few areas in the economy that we haven't gotten better, but we've actually gotten worse at how we process homes. We're less efficient at it, right? It's about 30% actually less efficient than it was 20, 30 years ago. And to me, that's pretty sad. And we're seeing the consequences of that with the current housing market, not just in the United States, but across the world, right? Houses are becoming more and more expensive, and they're also becoming unaffordable for people to buy into them, right? And so Lush is looking to rethink how we build homes. And a lot of that is how we're looking to improve on sustainability, removing waste, um, being green, and improving on processing, right? How do we make things so that you don't have to set them down and pick them up again? Um, Things like that.
Okay. And so Lush, then you started off the wiki. Do you guys have any type of, like, what have you done since then? Do you because you guys, does Lush build the homes, or what does Lush actually provide?
Yep. So Lush has a number of different levels, basically, of how far along you want us to be involved in the system. So we would say the first step would be just consulting. So if you want us to help you answer questions about housing, designing, taking a layout. So I have a plot of land. I want you to help me design a house, give me architectural permits that I can use to then build a house. That's the first step. Next step would be what we call a Lush kit. So that's going to be, okay, instead of buying a lumber package, right, I'm going to buy a Lush kit that's going to be delivered to your site. And you're going to be able to build this home with a rubber mallet and frame it together and then finish it like a normal home. Then you have Lush Kit Plus, which is going to be the same thing. You're going to get the kit, the assembly, and then we're also going to provide you things like cabinets and trim and internal walls, finishings that way. And then you have what I'd call like Lush development. So if you wanted to develop, we have projects that we're working on that want to build 10, 20 homes, right? At a subdivision concept. We're working from start to finish. So Lush has the ability to do the bare minimum of design all the way up to full GCing and developing the project. The end goal of Lush, I would say, is to become a consulting and distribution company, in the sense that we're going to help you design your home, and other GCs are going to be educated on how to use the system. And you're just going to hire a normal GC like you would, and you're just going to buy a Lush kit instead of a framing package, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the idea, the ultimate vision is that Lush is a concept and a consultant to match people who want to build houses with this new system with
Correct.
the system itself.
Correct.
And today, if I understand correctly, right, this is the kit. So say I buy Lush, what'd you say, Lush Home,
Yep. A Lush
or
kit or
Lush
a Lush
Kit?
home project. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If I buy a Lush Kit, right, I'm getting a kit that's essentially a bunch of parts that you said can be put together with a mallet. They're cut on a CNC, right? This is plywood or particle board or some type of sheet good material, right?
Correct.
That is kind of the big significant difference from conventional
Yeah.
houses built here. And for
So
any
maybe
non-US
I'll,
listeners, where most houses are still stick built with 2x4s dimensional nominal lumber, right? And so what
correct.
you guys are, what the WikiHouse is, but also what you guys do is essentially it's cut out of sheet goods, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I guess I'll give you a quick uh, breakdown of that. So Lush homes, what's different about a Lush home is a Lush home is built entirely out of 3/4 inch 7-ply plywood. So the entire home is built out of that. So when you go to buy a normal lumber package, right, you have 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x12s. You got nails, you got brackets, you got screws, you got glue, all that stuff, right? When you're building a Lush home, all you have is plywood, 3/4 inch plywood that snaps together. No nails or glue is holding the structure together. It's all mortise and tenon interlocking. Okay. So it's always funny. We walk people out into the warehouse and we say, here's my house that I'm building right now. It's just this giant pile of plywood, right? And when we cut it out on the CNC machine, which is every part's cut on a CNC machine, we're cutting to 0.001 of an inch tolerance. So, barely any tolerance, right? So every morning when we run the machine, we're out measuring the tolerance of it. The system also has plug and play holes through it. So it's designed that you can run all of your mechanicals through the beams. So you don't have to be drilling holes. It's 6x12 framing. So instead of 2x4, 2x6 framing, you're looking at a 6x12 frame. We're putting 3 to 4 inches of spray and foam into the structure. We're designing the home so that the pitch of the roof is optimized for solar. So there's a lot of things that, as we continue going down here, that we're doing to make the product superior to just what I'd call a plain boring lumber package, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the idea is I should be able to say I wanted to buy a Lush kit or a Lush kit plus, right? I can buy that, and today, right, a millwork shop cuts that, and it's a whole kit that comes to me by way of, I assume, truck or train or some way delivered to the job site.
Yep.
And like you said, I'm just assembling it, right?
Correct. So that's something also unique that we do is everything fits inside of a normal semi truck. So instead of having an oversized load, right, everything is secured into a semi truck, protected from the elements, and it's actually back loaded. So just like if you get like an IKEA set, right, it comes in the little packages that tell you where everything goes. We backload the semi truck. So the first piece that you grab off of the truck is the first piece that goes onto the site. Nothing comes off of the truck and gets set down on the site. So if you look at pictures on our website, you'll notice that there's no dumpster because there's no waste. You'll notice that there's no pieces laying around on the site. And so everything comes right off the truck immediately onto the house. Same thing with even the sheeting. We even stack the sheeting like a deck of cards. So if sheeting on the wall is in 3 sections and each part is numbered like a Lego, so let's just say it's numbered 1, 2, and 3. The first piece on the deck would be a 1, the next would be a 2, the next would be 3, and then it'd go back to a 1, right? So you just literally grab, put it on the wall. So that goes back to the concept of how we continue to improve processing, right?
And so are these houses that you're doing, are they built on, because you've built houses already. There's already
Yep.
houses built, right?
Yep.
Is this concept based on like a slab construction or a crawl space with framing from Lush as well, or a mixture?
Yep. So Lush's structures can be built on in any design that you can think of, and it can be built on any foundation that you can think of for traditional construction. So to this date, we've built on a slab and we've built over a basement. We're experimenting with things like building on pylons. So think of like how lighthouses are. That concept came around is that we can put that foundation in a day. They're hexagonal screws that go into the ground, and then you just put your beams across that, and so you could essentially have a foundation and framed house in less than a week with that concept. We can currently span up to 29 feet across with a beam without any load-bearing walls. All of the structures have no trusses because of the 6x12 framing, so you get nice high vaulted ceilings as a standard product with the system as well.
So can you explain for people that are probably listening and curious, because you said, okay, we're cutting this out of plywood, and everybody's probably thinking 4x8, maybe 5x10, 5x12, right? But you just said you can span 29 feet, I think you said. Can you explain for those who are struggling to grasp that concept, how you're achieving that?
Yeah. So we're able to achieve that because what we're doing is, let's see here. So we have a part in the system that's called it's actually a number 11 is the specific part. And we call that a spider jig. And that's actually the piece that holds the entire structure together. And it looks like a spider jig. We call it because it looks like a square. And then there's little tabs on each end. And what that does is when you snap the plywood onto each side, that's what gives you that 6x12 box and gives you that 6x12 framing. And because we have 6x12 framing, we basically create this giant plywood beam. And it comes up to the strength of basically like a light I-beam is how strong it gets. And because of that strength of that plywood beam that we've created, it's allowing us to span that distance. And so when we started off, we started with doing only like a 16 foot, and then we did 25. Now we're doing a 29 here in Wisconsin. And we're actually looking at how we continue to increase that amount. And we have to do all engineering reports to obviously test that and back that up. But for example, if we wanted to go further for like commercial buildings and you wanted to do a 40-foot span, basically all we would do is instead of doing a 6x12, we would do like a 6x16 or 18 or 20. So we just keep making that section taller, which would give you the structural strength. Or worse comes to worse, right? You just have a load-bearing wall, right?
Right. Okay. And so, and then after so this is basically you're providing a framing kit, and then
Mhm.
people can put normal finishes over top of that, right? Siding, drywall.
Correct. So we've also developed our own internal framing and finishing system that we've developed as well. So on the outside, yes, you're doing your traditional siding. If you want to do vinyl, we're doing LP. Again, LP is a wood product and green, so that's why we specifically are using that product. But if you wanted to put stone, brick, vinyl, all that, you can do that on the siding. Same with the roof. You want to do an asphalt metal roof. Inside, however, because you have no load bearing walls, it's like a commercial building in the sense that you can finish it however you want. So you can use 2x4 studs if you want to at that point, but we've developed our own assembly system, again, entirely made out of 3/4 inch plywood, that these pieces are 4x8 boxes of plywood that are framed up. You can set them into place, and then instead of doing drywall, we do thermal fused panels that can actually just snap right onto the wall. And so for those that are wondering what a thermal fused panel is, again, it's simply a 3/4 inch piece of plywood that has a piece of paper or plastic laminate that goes on top of it. So again, it's a green product. And then what we do is we actually cut out little holes in the back of it. And on the beams of the structure, there's those little tabs that are sticking out. And so you can take basically suction cups of this piece of on this thermal fuse panel, walk it over to the wall, and just snap it right in. And it's a finished product. So it takes 5 minutes to go from the truck right onto the wall. You don't have to mud it, tape it, paint it, all of that good stuff. It's a finished product, and it's 3/4 inch replacing drywall. If someone wants to do drywall, absolutely, they can put drywall over the structure.
So some of the houses you've built, can you talk about like the size and scale of them? How many square feet are, for example, would be one of the larger homes you've built?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just kind of progress how we've gone over the years. So we first started out, right, just like anyone, with a small 3x3 prototype, right, of the concept. From there, we went into 100 square foot sheds that we built, or offices. I know during COVID, right, a lot of people made 100 square foot offices in their backyard. From there, we then progressed to building a 500 square foot prototype structure. Then we built a 1,000 square foot workshop. And then our most recent project that we did was we built a full home. This home was a single story ranch, 1,300 square feet on the first floor. We finished the entire basement, which was 1,300 square feet, and we put a 2.5 car garage. So when you add up all of the square footage, it's 3,200 square feet. If you're looking at it as a realtor, where they would only count the first floor and part of the basement, you're looking at about 1,800 square feet. And the most recent project we're working on is actually my house out in Cedarburg. Uh, that's going to be a much bigger house, and we're testing actually building 2 stories now in our 29-foot beams. That structure's 2,300 square feet on the first floor. If you include the full basement, all those things, we're actually almost 6,000 square feet. So we've done anything from 100 square feet all the way up to now, the structure of that house is probably 3,200 square feet, right? But the entire house, right? So we can do
Yep.
small all the way up to big.
And all of this is obviously having to go through the same, inspections and code compliance and things. What is
Yep.
that path been like for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So, fun would be the short word for it. But going through the inspection process, right? So for those that aren't familiar, most construction processes follow the UDC. So I think 48 of 50 states follow UDC, which stands for Unified Dwelling Code. And when you're building a house and an inspector comes out, they're following the UDC code. And so because our structure doesn't even have nails or glue, right? We don't follow any of that. And so whenever we're building something, we have to basically provide proof that our structure meets or exceeds those requirements of UDC. And so what we're doing when we're building the homes is we're just providing the engineering reports that go with it that say, yes, this structure meets or exceeds, which in our case, we pretty much exceed greatly on all of the products or standards that they're rating by, so that the engineer has it. And in order to continue to improve on that, we worked very closely with the city of Milwaukee. We worked with the commissioner in the city of Milwaukee. We worked directly with the underwriting teams and have actually developed a team within the city of Milwaukee that reviews our permits and all of those things so that they're familiar with the concept. On top of that, this last year, we actually were part of the continued education requirement for all of the city and municipality inspectors in the state of Wisconsin. So I think we did 6 or 7 presentations on Lush, and I think we talked to the entire state. So I think it's about 2,000 or so inspectors in all the municipalities. So everyone in the state of Wisconsin is familiar with the product, as well as several others in different states across the United States.
Awesome. So, are there any kind of byproducts of this that were unexpected? Obviously. So I'm curious about, obviously, like labor. I would imagine is going to be a huge benefit, especially on site, speed of assembly and getting to the same result. Like, do you have any kind of anecdotes or even data on that? And then, are there any other things you didn't expect that have become kind of pleasant surprises with benefits of what you're doing?
Yeah. So we're constantly trying to gather more and more data points, right? When you have a new system and you're trying to constantly improve the system. I would say most of the things that we found have been positive and continue to get better. The best example that I can give is when we built our first prototype, which was a 25-foot spanning section, so 100 square feet, 4 feet by 25. And we've actually left it outside, exposed to the elements. It's been out there for 2 years and the building still stands. It's actually tighter than when we first assembled it. That framing process took us about 60 hours to do it the first time, right? The second time we built it, it took us about 25 hours. This next time we built it, it took us about 6 hours, right? Today, with an experienced crew, and by experienced, I say building 1 or 2 structures or been at the site for 1 or 2 days, they're building that same 100 square feet to the sheeting in 3 to 4 hours, right? And so we're continually seeing an improvement on how long it takes to assemble things. Running the CNC machines, right? The production of the part, right? When we first started, we thought we were going to need maybe 4 to 6 guys there to produce the parts, right? You need a guy running each CNC machine, and then you need guys to assemble the beams to be ready to be shipped out to the site. We're currently running that with 1, if not 2 max people. So 1 guy now can run the 2 machines, and he can actually partially assemble the beams depending on the cut sheets that we're doing. Sometimes it gets too fast and we need a second person to come in and help him assemble the beams, right? But we're getting faster at that too. What else? We look at, how we cut out the beams and the time of the sheet, right? So right now we're cutting out all of the individual parts on the beam with a number, right? So like one might be numbered 1, 2, 3, right? Or number 41, 42, right? So we're counting how long it takes to cut those sheets, right? With that. So some of the things we're looking at doing is eliminating those or unnecessary holes that we've had before, to reduce the time, right? If it takes 30 minutes to cut a sheet and 5 minutes is just cutting out the holes, right? If we eliminate that, we're going to reduce, right, maybe 10% the amount of time it takes to cut a sheet, which then lowers the cost of the product for framing, right?
Yeah. And so, obviously there's cost savings in materials, cost savings in labor on site, because that's one of the things that I think surprises most people. And there's a lot of other, well, I say a lot, there's other paths people are taking to kind of similarly tackling the problem of how we build houses today, which is very labor intensive in the US.
Correct.
It's very much just deliver, bundles of wood, and then you have guys just cutting and building and on site entirely.
Correct.
And there are people that are basically kind of taking that same system and making it a manufacturing process, still 2x4s, 2x6s, shipping walls
Yep.
to site. There's, things like SIPs panels. There's other things like this. Um, but
Yep.
those all still are very much conventional methods
Yeah,
to
and
get right.
if you want, I can talk a little bit about that. So I think what you're talking about is right. Some of these big factories, right, and they're making pre-made 2x4 walls and shipping them, out to the site and stuff. And we've actually toured a lot of those facilities, and I think there's benefits to those systems and what they're doing. But what we're finding is that they're becoming outdated, right? When you look at all of those big mechanical arms that are coming in, the price of those pieces of machinery were $1 million 1-2 years ago. They're now 500,000. You look at like a Tesla, those animated Tesla bots that they're showing right now, right, that are going to be 20, 30,000. If that can do the same thing a $500,000 arm can do, right, it's going to make that factory obsolete really quickly. Another thing to look at is when you have recessions in the market, what we typically see over time is a lot of these businesses grow really big. And when we ask them, what are your biggest problems in your factory, is it's constantly feeding the beast, is what we call it, right? If you put $50 million in building this giant gigafactory, right, and all of a sudden you have a 50% cutback in the market, that monster is going to starve, right? The concept of Lush is fourth generation manufacturing. So what that is we're designed to use access capacity of existing businesses, right? And that's how we're going to scale this in a quicker fashion as well. So the first example of that is Lush using our family business, Lange Brothers. Lange Brothers currently runs a first shift making cabinetry and millwork. The second and third shift, however, the machine is sitting doing nothing. And so what the goal is that during their second and third shift, they can use their CNC machine to produce these Lush parts, which will increase their production from that, which will allow them to lower their overhead on their primary product, which is cabinets. So it's a win-win-win for all situations. It's a win in the sense that Lang Brothers can produce another product to sell. They can then lower their overhead expenses, so they can then lower the cost of their product, cabinetry. And it's a win for Lush because, right, we're supplying the technology and the information so that they can produce those kits, right? And so our system is actually all based off of the technology of sending the data to someone. So if you want to build a house in California, you're listening and you have a factory in California with a CNC machine, and you say, hey, this would be perfect for us to build in our neighborhood. We're not going to produce it here in Wisconsin. We're going to send the information to a partner in California that's going to produce it locally to reduce those costs and have it shipped to you from there, right? And so when you have a recession, right, all these businesses don't go out of business. They just produce less Lush kits, or, and then they have their primary shift, or flip it around, right? Let's say no one's building cabinets anymore, right? You could fill it with Lush kits, right? Because housing is in so much demand, right? If millwork is falling off to the wayside, or furniture companies I talk to a lot of the times, right? If you're not making furniture, you could be making Lush kits. So it helps provide stability to these businesses as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So can you explain, like, for people that are listening, there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this that
Mm-hmm.
have a millwork shop that has capacity. What
Yep.
what does a shop need if they were to be a manufacturer, if they were to do what Langbros is doing and say, hey, we want to build Lush kits for Lush. Uh,
Yep.
what do they need to tool up to do that?
Yeah. So the first step would be just reaching out. If you go out to our website, which is just lushhome.org, and reach out to us via email, we basically would set up a introductory meeting with you, and we would take you through our process on a high level. What does that look like, right? You have to have obviously the proper machinery, CNC machine, right? You can't have $1,000 teeny CNC, right? You have to have the proper CNC machinery, and then understanding the process, right? The example that I always give is it's not just we have two patents. One is on the product that we have, so the kits, the Legos that everyone calls it. The other is actually the process of how it's done. right? So once we know you have the machinery and the technology to do it, then we want to actually come out and meet with you to take you through what we would say is the proper process to achieve the success. Another example I give is if I go golfing and I take my set of golf clubs and I hit par, right? And I give you my golf clubs, right? You're not necessarily going to hit par with my golf clubs, right? I have to teach you how to do the proper swing to get up to that level. So I would say is the high level of doing it.
But and essentially, it sounds like if you have a CNC, a nested base CNC, which many shops do now, right?
Yep,
A
absolutely.
commercial grade, CNC. And then as far as beyond that, it's there. Like Lush has all the engineering. You're
Yep,
sending them. What are you sending to the shop? Obviously, there's going to be programs that need to be cut,
yep.
and then there's some partial assembly, packaging, and then shipping out. Like, what
Yeah.
is how involved is it, and is there any special labor or anything beyond that a normal cabinet
Nope.
shop wouldn't have that they would need?
Typically speaking, no. And that's what to me is exciting about it is that it's relatively easy for us to pass that information on to, right? Once you have the programming and the design, and one of the things that we can do, right, is again, I like to reference Tesla a lot because I really like a lot of things they're doing, right? Is if you have a car, a Tesla car, right, they can continually send you updates, right? Same thing with the Lush system, right? We've gone from a 25 to a 29 beam, right? We can push that update out to you directly, right? We can constantly keep updating the system and software for you. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward on that.
Okay. And I imagine that's a part of the vision, right? Is that there will be cabinet shops all over the U.S. Building Lush kits.
Correct. Yeah. So back to where we started, right? Is the grand vision is that Lush is the consulting and distribution company that is holding this, and we're using fourth generation manufacturing to push this data out to local producers, right? To produce homes using their access capacity to build homes with their primary product that they have.
So if I'm interested, from a consumer standpoint, I'm saying, hey, I've got a house I want to build. I've got a project I want to build.
Yep.
Maybe I already have a GC. Is a GC still necessary? What's that process like? Of say, I'm here in Georgia. I want to build a Lush
Yep.
home here.
Yep.
How complex and what can I expect from a homeowner standpoint or from a consumer standpoint?
Yeah. So I think it just depends on the individual. So if you're someone that has experience in this or you've built a home before, I think you'd be able to do it on your own, right? So for my house, I'm doing it on my own. I have guys helping me, but I'm doing it all by myself, right? The goal is to make it so that someone can easily get into this construction or become a GC themselves. If you're someone that says,
Mhm.
"Hey, I have no experience with this. I'm trying to figure out which way to hold a hammer," right? Then absolutely you can hire a GC to take you through that process.
But I imagine the barrier to entry to build a house with a Lush kit is much lower than to build a house the conventional way if you've never done either.
Correct. It's exactly right because you're using one material, 3/4 inch plywood, parts, everything's numbered. When you're framing at site, I'm trying to think, there's roughly like 15 or 16 parts or numbers you need to remember. And most of those are just sections of sheeting, walling, and flooring. So when you get your kit and it comes to the site, I'll just go through them. If you're building over a basement, you have what's called a U beam. So it simply just looks like a U, right? And where my thumbs are here, that's the flooring that spans across, and then the upper part is the walls going halfway up, and then you have a V beam that connects to the top section of the wall and the roof, right? So you lay those two pieces down. So a U and a V beam, you connect those pieces with a number 4 to connect the wall sections. And at the top of the V, there's a number 6 piece that connects that part there. So that's 4 pieces, right? Then you have what I call teeth. They're number 24s. That's what connects in between the beams. And then you have your sheeting. So for flooring, you have 41, 42, 43. For walls, you have 51, 52, 53. And for ceilings, you have 61, 62, 63. So That's the 9 for the sheeting. You have your connector at 10, and then you have the 4 pieces I gave you before, so 14 pieces, right?
And is this all coming cut to length? What am I expecting? Am I
Yeah.
getting these beams and stuff, and then I'm cutting them to my layout, or is all that already figured out and
This
it's
is,
pre-cut?
so this is already done for you. So when you think of a Lego kit, right? Think of
Mhm.
exactly like that. So instead of having a big plastic bag, you have a big semi truck, right? You open that up, and inside there is going to be, the first thing is going to be your U beams, right? So you pull that U beam
Mhm.
out, you lay it down, right? You don't set it on the site, you just lay it right on the house. You pull out your V beams, you lay it right on the house. You pull out your connectors, you connect it, you lift that, what I call a rib, up, and then you put your 24s into place. And then you're ready to make the next rib, and you take that and then you connect it, and you just keep going. So your house, your Lego house, I guess, as a lot of people will call it when I first explain it to them, is already pre-cut and made. When we built one of our houses in Milwaukee, someone that has experience building homes, he said, bring extra this piece, extra this piece. We might need it, right? When we finished the house, guess what was left over? All of those pieces, right? Just like when you buy a Lego kit, they don't give you extra yellow or red pieces, right? They say, no, you need 10 red blocks, right? So they give you 10
Right.
red blocks. Same thing with the Lush home. If you need 10 U beams, right, to build 1,000 square feet of home, we're going to give you 10 U beams. You need the span to be 25 feet. It's going to be the 25 foot in length, right? You're going to have everything completely numbered out for you and sent to you in a package that you can then basically, like I said, take it right off the truck, backloaded, so that you can put it immediately onto the house.
And then what am I building this from? Like, I imagine, are there shop drawings? Is this like IKEA where there's pictures? Like, how,
Yeah.
obviously there's instructions or something. I imagine that's different than a traditional house build to some extent.
I mean, you have your normal blueprint drawing, right? And
Mhm.
when we train crews how to build this, I would say it takes roughly 3 to 4 hours to train someone on how to frame a house, compared to months, if not years, to teach someone how to frame a house traditionally, right? And
Yeah.
that's because that process I just showed you with pulling out the beams and doing that, that's how you build 100 square feet, right? So once you see how to do that, and a lot of our designs right now are like a basic, square for cost of points. But if you want to make like a curved wall and stuff, we can do that as well, and up to 3 stories, I would say, uh, on top of that. But yeah, so once you see how to do that, you're following the blueprint. You put the pieces together. It's rinse and repeat. It's pretty straightforward, right? It's not, again, you don't have to figure out, okay, I have to put these, screws here, or these bolts here, or this bracket on this point, lifting this up. It's no, just take your rubber mallet, put the number 4 piece in between there, and you pound it in, and it snaps and it interlocks those pieces, right?
Awesome. And,
Yeah.
and so all of that, I imagine, is on the drawings though. Is it literally like, hey, here's a number 4, put it here. Here's a number 25, whatever the numbers are, or
Yeah, I mean, we're
um,
we're not at the we're not at the point where we have it, like a book that says, hey, put this piece exactly to it. On the drawings, you will see basically like a flower blowout of all the pieces, and then you can tell generally where they go. So you'll see the beam, and then in there's each numbered part, and you can see obviously it goes into that spot.
yeah. So what is the future for Lush? What's next?
Yep. So what's next for Lush, I think, is how do we take this to scale, right? We had the honor of actually going to the White House to present Lush to the National Economic Council the previous year in December. And the conversation there was exactly what you're asking, and what's next, and how do you scale this, right? We're building these homes. We're finding on average at about $200 per square foot finished turnkey. If you're building into the sheeting, we're finding on a slab about $40 a square foot. If you're building over a basement, about $50 a square foot. If you're looking at like a kit, right? And so, at least in Wisconsin, when we compare that to traditional construction, $200 a square foot is about a third less. Most home builders building an individual home, we're finding, are at about $300 to $325 a square foot. The lowest we've seen is in that $225 a square foot. And that's when you get into larger projects, right, with scaling and multifamily and things like that. So on both ends, we're actually beating traditional construction on our first try. And so what that means to me is we have a product that's faster, stronger, greener, at a lower cost point, right? And so normally when you have your construction, you talk about your 3 points, right? You can only have two of them. Um, what we think we have here is all 3 points, right? You're beating on cost, quality and speed, right?
Yeah,
And so for
absolutely.
us, we talked a little bit about this in the sense of scaling, right? Passing that data out to other people. So, and you're looking at the next 5 years for us right now, it's continuing to build more and more of them and training other individuals so that they start building them, right? So it's not just us building 1, 2, 10 homes, right? We train you start building 1, 2, 3 homes, then you train someone else, they start building homes, right? And then as people start to realize the competitive advantage of this product, right? They're going to then obviously transition and say, why would I buy a lumber package? I'm going to buy a Lush kit, right? And then we can scale that out from the city of Milwaukee to the regions and nation, right?
Yeah, awesome. So you talked a little bit about, you chose plywood because of its sustainability. Can you talk about, as far as the finished home,
Mm-hmm.
as far as uh, efficiency standpoint, is there any stats
Yep.
or information you have about that, the efficiency of this as a product compared to a standard home? As far as, you're in Milwaukee, right? You get snow, you get
Correct.
extreme cold.
Yep.
Obviously heating is a big factor. What about all those types of pieces of it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, the homes that we've been building are meeting the highest net zero energy home DOE standard. Um, and the way we're achieving that is because, again, we're building with a 6x12 frame. If you're looking at that wall, right, it's 12 inches thick. And what we're doing is we're putting 3 to 4 inches of spray foam on the inside. You then have your 3-inch diameter hole that you can run your mechanicals, all your electrical, plumbing, all of that. And then you still have another 3 to 4 inch gap. And then you have your thermal fused panel on the outside. So the two key things that are really giving us that high energy efficiency is the spray and foam, because spray foam
Mhm.
is much more energy efficient. Um, the example I will give is if you look at blow-in fiberglass, right? You might have 12 inches of it in there, for example. That would give you an R42 insulation rating. Where fiberglass at 3 to 4 inches is only going to give you into the R30 range. Um, Fiberglass is 95% energy efficient, where the fiberglass is going to be only about 60 to 70% efficient. So what that means is only 5% of air is getting through the foam, where 30 to 40% is getting through the fiberglass. And when you put those side by side, we actually have tests that show that you can actually see the frost still on the roof where you have the foam, and when you have the fiberglass, you can see it starting to thaw already because the air and the heat is escaping through that product. Um,
Yeah,
so
I've heard
we're
a
finding that, yeah,
good example of visualizing this, because I know a lot of people struggle with that idea of like, how can this much insulation, actually insulate a house and be that effective? But if you think
correct,
about like those styrofoam coffee cups that you get, and having, boiling hot coffee inside and you can hold it, that's the same concept of it's creating that insulating barrier of not transferring that temperature through. And with those 12-inch
correct.
thick walls, I imagine you're getting a huge separation for blocking any transfer of
Yeah,
temperature.
and some cool tests we did when we first sprayed the foam. Um, we didn't have any, furnace or anything in the structure. Like you said, in January it gets cold, right? It dropped down for a week to like 0 degrees, right? The house went from uh, about 50 degrees inside down to 36 degrees over an entire week. So it's only dropping 1, 2 degrees with no heating, right? Just geothermal heat coming up, and it never went
Hmm.
below freezing, right? And so to me, that's pretty powerful that a house won't go below freezing with zero heat in the structure if you ever lost power. Same thing with the heating. We didn't turn the AC on. It was 85 out for the entire week. It went from 70 to 78 in a week. You turn on the AC
Wow.
for 20 minutes, it's right back down to 70 degrees again, right?
Yeah. Well, awesome. So for those that are listening, if they want to find out more about Lush, everything you've been talking about, whether they're a cabinet shop and they're interested in building kits, or if they're somebody looking to build one of these kits, how can they find out more?
Yeah. So if you want to find out more about Lush, like I said, I would encourage you to go to our website. So that's going to be lushhome.org. You'll be able to see a lot of our updates and projects that we're working on. If you want to be even more update on it, I would go to our LinkedIn or Facebook account. And those are simply just going to be Lush LLC. And there you'll see, there we're posting roughly every week updated stories and things that are going on. You can then reach out to us through any of those channels, and we can either set up a meeting or a tour and go from there.
Awesome. So this is super exciting. I'm excited for more people to hear about this and help see this grow. And I think what you're doing is really awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with people about what you're doing or what's coming in the future?
I think just in summary, I would just like to tell people to, we're looking to challenge the status quo of house building, right? Like I said, we're rethinking how we build homes. And if you want to be part of that or provide, continued solutions, we're all ears. We're constantly looking to continue to learn and improve on our system. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thank you, RJ, for joining and sharing about this. We'll be linking in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, you should be able to go down to the show notes and go right to their website, and we'll share their LinkedIn and Facebook as well. And look forward to having you on again in the future and seeing the progress you guys make.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, RJ.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.